Hello, everyone, and welcome to the grand finale of the Intermediate Division. My name is Whack, and joining me today here is Rain. How are you doing, Rain?
Hi, Zach. I'm good. I'm excited to be here. Grand finals, always an excellent match to watch, I'm sure. So excited to get into the action of the intermediate division.
Exactly, and we have some teams that we've been seeing a lot recently and that have just excelled the entire time. Catloaf versus Ignition Fury.
Yeah, so both these teams we're probably all familiar with. Catloaf is on a very impressive win streak right now, not dropping a match since week 1 of SPCS. So lots of momentum on the side of Catloaf, but for the side of Ignition Frenzy, right? These guys came into the playoffs in 12th seed and they have won every match since then. So this team also stepping up here and really earning their spot in this grand finals match.
Absolutely, yeah. Like you said, Catloaf has only dropped a single map throughout this entire series. Ignition Frenzy, not far behind, only dropping 2 maps, one of them to the same team that Catloaf lost against. So these are both extremely high-performing teams, really good players, and we're about to see them very shortly.
Yeah, like you mentioned, Zwack, we're gonna be getting kicked off on the action very shortly here. We will be heading into Busan as our first map, and that was Catloaf's pick.
Yeah, and we've seen both these teams pull out a lot of different range so far. Catloaf really enjoying, they've kind of transitioned. We've seen the meta evolve throughout the entire duration of this series, and both teams have responded accordingly. And I think that's a big reason as to why they're still here today. The adaptation from both of these teams has been really well done, and so very excited to see what they're going to be pulling off in Busan.
Yeah, it's a good point. Meta shifts during the season, it can really make or break some teams, right? We saw some teams that were doing really great, pushing forward, taking a lot of match wins, and then the meta shift happens, and if you're just not able to adapt, and if the timing's not right, that could mean elimination for you.
Exactly, and elimination is not an option. The stakes have never been higher. The team that wins this match is going to be winning all of the intermediate division and become the intermediate division champion. So with that, I think we're about ready to get started.
Head into the first map here, and both teams definitely going to be eager to be that first intermediate division champion, right, for season 1 of SPCS. It's quite a title to have, and both of these teams have shown us that they're able to fight. Some of the matches they've played have gone to the 7 maps, so I would not be surprised if we end up on a map 7 here in the grand finals of intermediate.
That's the hopes, and that is exactly what we have seen recently. And for both these teams, their previous matches, Catloaf versus Beat Drop Bears, that ended up being 6 games. It was the same thing for Ignition Fury versus, Bananasaurus. Also ended up going actually 7 maps. So the stronger these teams get, we're seeing an even longer and longer game. So extremely excited and would not be surprised at all seeing this series go the mile.
Yeah, we will be heading into Busan here, where it's all gonna get started off. We're kicking off the map on Sanctuary. Both teams hovering around some compositions. Doomfist is an option here. It's a very big map, not a lot of walls to hit, so it might be a little bit harder to get value, but looks like we will be sticking on the Doomfist for Ignition Frenzy. So running a very heavy dive composition here, gonna look to get in onto the targets of Catloaf very quickly. However, on the side of Catloaf, you're playing with a double sniper here, so looking to just hit heads and take picks early while Koi gets set up on that Sigma and just try to put pressure onto the sniper of Ignition Frenzy.
Yeah, already Cry looking for a little bit of an opening pick, but it's actually going to be Ice Rare that finds domination. Ignition Fury losing 2 players extremely early into the fight, and now it looks like it will be going the way of Catloaf. And you're not going to find anything, but Dab Master ends up finding Bunny while they're running away, and Catloaf with a dominant start to the series.
Yeah, you feel pretty good about taking this for the first time for Catloaf. You want to get set up on the point here where you're running that Sigma composition with the Widow and the Hanzo. You really want to get set up in positions around the point so that when Ignition Frenzy look to push in, they're going to be taking damage from lots of different sides, which is just hard for them to sustain through with this Doomfist composition where you really just need to get in and get out very quickly.
Yeah, Catloaf did a really good job rotating before, and now Domination looking for a little bit, won't find anything. Icer trying to find the rotations, but it's going to be Andrew that finds Ice Rare amid all of it, but not for free. Koi ends up taking out Andrew, and Domination gets the trade onto Cry. Currently, advantage in the favor of Ignition Frenzy, and Tanic B is going to secure that advantage. Lure ends up dropping, and Dabmaster does find one, but eventually falls to Domination, and Ignition Frenzy recaptures the point at 50%.
Yeah, 50% for Catloaf. That's a pretty good percentage gains there. Domination did a really great job of just totally ignoring Koi on the Sigma there, diving straight into the backline of Catloaf and taking out the supports. We will see the swap off the Hanzo. Icer gonna go over onto the Cassidy instead. Gonna try to look to control Domination on this Doomfist a little bit, because right now Domination is putting in so much work for Frenzy.
Tanic B just barely getting out. Now the site's going to be used to spot any possible rotations. Going to try and find the Widow, but will not be able to do so. Lore successfully gets out. It's Cry, though, that ends up going deep and finds Fork. That is an excellent pick for Catloaf, exactly what they're going to be needing. Looking for a little bit more, trying to make it two. Get both supports, but Cry not able to get Bunny quite yet. Domination looking for a little bit, but it is going the way of Ignition Frenzy.
Yeah, we do see the copy come out from Tanic B. I think that might have been just to try and stay alive through this fight, but Ignition Frenzy, they do have some picks here, so looking to clean up this fight and hold on to the point.
Yeah, Koi does have the ultimate, but going to have to die, trying to stall it out a little bit, force them to kill, and now Ignition Frenzy looking good for this next fight.
Yeah, Andrew doing excellent job on this Widowmaker. When Koi isn't there to put pressure onto Andrew, Andrew's able to find these picks, and there they find Horror early. Gonna force Catloaf to just get a regroup going. However, Dabmaster does trade out for Andrew, so that is a good pick for Catloaf. You don't have the Widowmaker putting pressure on you as you push back into this point.
Yeah, that is a really important pick from Dabmaster there. Now Domination looking to try and recover a little bit. Going in a little bit deep, it gets a little bit low, but the support is there. But the beat is there for Catloaf. Domination not going to be able to find anything and ends up getting picked out by Lore. Catloaf very quickly reclaims the point despite the Juno ult coming in.
Yeah, the Juno ult came out. Bunny not able to find the value. However, Cry, she finds a sound barrier onto all 5 members of Catloaf, able to sustain through that fight. Looks like we will have swaps coming from the side of Ignition Frenzy. Tanic B and Domination gonna match the Genji and the Orisa that Koi and Icer are playing. So we're gonna have much more of a brawl style happening here while teams fight for this control of the right side of point.
Yeah, Cry looking for a little bit, but maybe gets a little bit too aggressive, just barely escapes danger, and now going in with the Kitsune. Not gonna be able to find a little bit, but Icer gets a Bunny, but Koi and Lore are finding the picks they need on Ignition Frenzy, and now Ignition Frenzy, they're not gonna be able to touch.
Yeah, that was an excellent timed Kitsune rush from Dabmaster. They keep the tempo going, and Catloaf able to secure the team kill on Ignition Frenzy, so nobody is able to touch that point. However, Zwack, this was not a sweep by any means. We saw that go 100 to 98, so both these teams warming up really well on Sanctuary.
For sure. We saw it kind of started with Catloaf finding that one pick, and that kind of led them to getting that first point on the objective, but eventually it looked like they struggled to deal with what Ignition Frenzy were doing. They rolled out on a pretty unique composition, and Catloaf eventually, after they made some swaps and figured out how to deal with it, that was enough to secure the point. And now Ignition Frenzy not going the Doomfist anymore, instead opting for the Queen.
Yeah, I think that this makes a lot more sense compared to the Doomfist. I will say, on the side of Catloaf, we're seeing Laura roll out on the Junkrat here, so that's gonna put so much damage into Ignition Frenzy. And when you're only running the Juno and the Brig for healing, it can be really hard to sustain through these fights. So Ignition Frenzy really has to take these fights very quickly.
Yeah, if you're Catloaf, you want to do the opposite. But right now, they're running into Koi. The cooldowns are coming out to slow down the push, and it might just be enough. The ring, they're not going to be able to push into it, but Koi getting dangerously low. The wall doesn't quite find it, but they're still looking for a little bit more. But it's going to be domination that ends up pushing a little bit too far. The fight, like you said, lasted too long, and Catloaf will be the one securing the objective.
Yeah, Ignition, they had the right idea. They were trying to push in, but they just didn't quite hit the cooldowns that they needed to, so weren't able to clean up the fight quick enough. We will see Tanic be swap off of the Mei, go over onto the Pharah, and we'll see Domination opt to match on that Orisa. So Ignition Frenzy right now, they need to set up lots of angles, right? You have the Ashe, you have the Pharah, you want to be doing damage from lots of angles, but Laura finds Bunny already. They are traded out here, though.
Yeah, but it looks like Catloaf just barely got a little bit more. Now Ignition Frenzy going to be trying to rotate out. Lure trying to find the pick onto the Pharah as a Junkrat will not be able to do it. It's going to be Ice Rare that ends up finding the pick first. But either way, that is a great stagger for Catloaf.
Yeah, that's right, and Catloaf is going into this next fight with ultimates online. Laura has built up to that tire. Cry already has the rally online as well. Dabmaster and Ice Rare are closing in their ults as well, so Ignition Frenzy have a really hard fight ahead of them. They might want to just take a dry fight here, build up ults of their own, because points already at 50%.
Yeah, for a little bit with the tire going deep, ends up falling for it, but can he get the trade? Will be able to find Canopy, and now it's up to Domination to re-secure the fight. They already have some picks, and they got Koi a little bit low, but the Juno Wall is there to bring back Catloaf into the fight, and that will be enough. Ice Rare ends up finding two, and Dabmaster going to make it a third. There's just two people left in the choke of Ignition Frenzy, and they're going to have to back up.
Dabmaster holding his team in that fight there. We saw two members of Catloaf go down, but the ultimate, Juno Orbital Ray coming out, keeping Catloaf on this high ground, holding this choke point. The Ignition Frenzy are having such a hard time walking through.
Yeah, and now the Surge going in is not going to be able to find anything, but forces them out into position, and Lure finds a pick onto Tanic B. Now Cry going incredibly low. It's going to be Domination that finds the pick. Now they're setting him on the point, trying to find Ice Rare after getting so low, but just barely will be able to do it. The Bob used to secure that kill, and now Ignition Frenzy has control of the point. Just a few people of Catloaf left, and it looks like Koi trying to regroup, and at very least from the spawn room with the rest of their team.
Yeah, it was expensive for Ignition Frenzy. They committed 4 ultimates on there. We will see Andrew swap over onto the Sojourn. Domination still holding on to that Terra Surge here. Gonna have to get big value from that in this fight. Catloaf, no ultimates online yet here. So Catloaf isn't too stressed, right? You can work with this. You can build up some ultimates. Domination, though, gonna have to look to hold off Catloaf with this Terra Surge.
Absolutely, and is looking for it right now. Doesn't have the cooldowns and will likely be forced. Thinks about backing up, but doesn't quite back up. Will do so now, playing on the objective to give Catloaf a little bit more space. But now Domination cooldowns back for a little bit more. Tanic B not in a position to take advantage of it quite as much, and doesn't find anything. Lure gets some great damage onto Domination, but it's going to be Andrew that finds the first pick onto Dabmaster, and Cry falling shortly after. The Deadeye not going to make a difference. The spin is there to deal with it, and Catloaf falls.
Oh, team kill coming out for Ignition Frenzy there. They really needed to win that fight there, right? Domination using that Terra Surge wasn't able to confirm any kills with the Terra Surge itself, but the rest of Ignition Frenzy doing a really great job cleaning up the targets that are low. And we do have the tire coming out early from Lore here. Makes me think that we might see a swap coming out from this Junkrat.
Yeah, it's looking for the Pharah. Does not quite have the duration. Gets a little bit close, but unfortunately not gonna be able to find anything. And Lure is a little late to this fight. Catloaf has already taken a lot of its space, but is now hunting down Fork. Fork getting incredibly low. Will fall, as well as Bonnie. Those are both the supports of Ignition Frenzy. Tanic B was trying to even it out by finding Lure, but it will not be enough. And now Catloaf securing the objective. The rope goes all the way down. Overtime is gone, and Catloaf takes the first map.
First map, that first point was pretty back and forth. Mecha Base a little bit tougher for Ignition Frenzy there. Catloaf is just doing a great job of synchronizing their cooldowns, and you're seeing that they're all kind of walking together at the same time. Ignition Frenzy not quite on the same page. When we saw the Queen comp roll out, and we knew that they definitely had to take these fights really quickly, take them early, we really needed to see the cooldowns coming out from the DPS a little bit earlier to try and section off the members of Catloaf, but not quite able to do it. However, it wasn't a sweep by any means.
No, absolutely. Ignition Frenzy clearly made Catloaf work for it and got some really good fights in, but Catloaf demonstrating what we have seen throughout this entire series. Not only do they have excellent mechanical and playmaking skills, they're also a really well-organized team. They always approach everything with a plan, and unraveling Catloaf's incredibly airtight plans if your Ignition Frenzy is going to be a challenge to overcome in your next map.
Yeah, for the next map, it's going to be on Ignition Frenzy to pick that map, and as always, you can have map choice as well, so we could be going to any map type and the map pool. So maybe if you're Ignition Frenzy, you want to pick a map that is going to pull Catloaf off of that brawl composition a little bit, because they seem to be doing a pretty good job being set up kind of in a group, and on Sanctuary as well, they were playing more of a poke style, but you still had your individual groups. So maybe Ignition wants to head over to a dive map here, try to shake things up a little bit, feel out your opponent, see if you can find some weaknesses in this Catloaf lineup.
For sure, and it's going to be challenging. If you look at the map histories, when a lot of teams, especially early on, really like to pick based on what other teams are kind of weak in, what maps they dropped. But when you're looking at these teams, when they're just really good, they haven't dropped any maps, barely any, so actually picking around that is going to be very, very difficult. If you're Ignition Frenzy, when there's so few weaknesses in Catloaf to try and exploit, then just trying to play into your strengths might be exactly the advantage that you need. But there's a lot that goes into this map decision, and there's a lot at stake.
There is. So we do have the map pick coming out from Ignition Frenzy. We will be heading into Watchpoint Gibraltar.
Yeah, and Watchpoint, like you mentioned, this is definitely a dive map, at very least for the first and second points. Less so for the third, but if you're steamrolling, you totally can. But definitely for that first and second, that is where we typically see a fair amount of dives. So clearly, that is the ticket that Ignition Frenzy believe they could use to secure victory.
Yeah, I think this makes sense for Ignition Frenzy. We saw Andrew on the Widowmaker on Sanctuary, and they were doing a great job of hitting those headshots. Watchpoint Gibraltar is one of those maps where you can run the Widowmaker and kind of get away with it, right? Because you can have them set back so far that they have a bit of safety going on. So maybe we see a Widow duel come out here. It's definitely possible. Ignition Frenzy probably feeling pretty good about how their Widow went on the first map of Busan. So it's maybe a lot of pressure, but it could fall on the DPS to try and turn this map around.
Certainly, and I think that we could very well see that. I do think that is a very likely situation. Andrew really did get a lot of important eliminations on Busan, and so trying to replicate that success on a map that really does facilitate that Widow gameplay could be extremely advantageous for Ignition Frenzy. Catloaf has players that can play the Widow, but maybe don't necessarily have that dedicated Widow player that you might typically see. But Laura absolutely can put on a show if the time calls for it. And it looks like Laura believes the time does in fact call for it.
Checking out the cat from Cry. I know that in their last stream match, they were a little upset that Mitzi the cat didn't get any stream time. So happy to see the cat coming out from Cry. We will see Catloaf setting up on the defense first here with that classic Ana Brig backline. We do have Laura, of course, as you said, Zwack, on the Widowmaker. So we'll see probably the Widow duel between Laura and Andrew. Andrew does have that locked right now. Looks like Frenzy also going to be opting for that Brig Ana backline. Oh, early nade comes out from Dab. Does connect onto 2. Domination on that Doomfist. So going to look to get some picks onto these squishy players of Catloaf.
Yeah, and there are plenty of squishy players to look at. We'll have to deal with Cry, who's going to be causing quite the nuisance for Domination, but if you can get past that, then you basically have free reign, making that first engagement, but not going to be able to find too much success. Just some soft dives, but Ice Rare does find a little bit more than Domination found. Gets the pick onto Ignition Frenzy's tank, and Ignition Frenzy just going to have to wait for their tank to come back.
Yeah, we will see Domination immediately swap off of that Doomfist, go over onto the Diva, and just that first pick shows Catloaf. They're so organized when it comes to these dives, right? Ice Air able to follow up and finish the kills that Koi dived onto.
Yeah, Koi taking a lot of damage from this Diva, but so did Andrew from a shot from Lore that did not quite connect. Gonna be looking for a little bit more, but Andrew playing it very safe, not gonna be able to find anything. Laura's like, please, a little bit further, but Koi finishes the job and finds Andrew. And now they are getting some cart push, some sneaky objective pressure from Domination, who will be leaving to rejoin with the rest of the team. Or actually, no, mess with the supports before doing so.
Straight up into the Ana Brig of Catloaf, not necessarily where a Diva wants to be. Andrew finding the pick onto Laura here, gonna have Catloaf up 1.
Yeah, and just barely, nope, not quite. And unable to keep Cry alive, but that's all right. Koi, all too happy to trade backlines with the rest of the team. Like, you can have that. I'll have everyone else. Going to be resetting, though. Domination putting some more pressure onto the point, and Catloaf going to be waiting for a few more respawns before they make a real engagement.
Yeah, we do see Koi has already built up to this Primal Rage, so happy to put some pressure onto this cart. Has that Primal Rage in the back pocket if they end up getting low, but Cry and Dab already back into this fight, and Laura almost built up to that sights as well, so Andrew gonna have to build up quickly as well so that they can keep this even Widow duel going.
For sure, and we're seeing Koi looking, trying to find a little bit onto the backline, and will have the Primal to deep engage, but Tanakby is also there, and the rally going to come out to keep the Ana alive. Cry fighting, holding down the objective, and now the rest of the team is there to force out Domination and to deal with the Echo Clone. The Baby Diva has been finished, and now it looks like the rest of Ignition Frenzy is going to be leaving. Just barely unable to secure this first checkpoint.
Yeah, that was such a clutch rally from Cry. Keeps Dabmaster alive through the double monkey, or the Winston Diva dive there from Domination and Tanakby. And Dabmaster survives through the Primal Rage that came out from Tanakby. And Cry able to stop the point from capping. So really good value from that. However, you're only holding on to the blade on the side of Catloaf. Ignition Frenzy coming back in with the Nano.
Yeah, and now, unfortunately, Domination does get a little bit slept while Nano won't be able to find anything. Gonna put a little bit of pressure onto Icer, who has the blade. If they can secure this pick, it'll be big, but not able to do so, and instead, Catloaf finds 2 on Ignition Frenzy and Domination, forced to retreat.
Yeah, Ignition, they're swapping up their DPS lineup here. We'll see Andrew go over onto the Tracer. Tanic swapping off of that Echo, going for the Genji. So Ignition Frenzy, they're looking for all-in dives right now. You only have 20 seconds left. You have to confirm a kill onto the backline of Catloaf or onto Icer, who has this blade.
Yeah, but Domination going incredibly low. That's going to force the bomb out already. Not ideal if you're Domination, but it does find Icer out of position. Both Genjis going to be put down as Dabmaster finds Tanakby, and now Domination looking to find a little bit more, but the Nano Monkey is there. Cry is there to protect the rest of the team, not allowing Domination to find anything amid all of this. And now Cry brawling it out on the point. The rally is there from Forks, but is not going to be able to find anything. The blade from Ice Rare is out and found Forks, and now Cry preventing Bunny from getting anywhere close to the objective. Uses the rally to force them back, and just with one more touch from Tanakby, that's going to be it. And Catloaf prevents Ignition Fury from capping the first checkpoint.
Oh, that's, you got a bit of space taken there if you're Frenzy, but you don't feel too confident about this full hold on Gibraltar. Ignition just not able to break through the defense of Catloaf. I'm so impressed with the backline of Catloaf for all the times that they got dove. Cry and Dabmaster just able to stay alive and keep each other alive through that. Meanwhile, Koi trading the backline of Ignition Frenzy pretty much every time the dive came in from Domination. So Catloaf just looking so incredibly strong on this watch point map. Ignition's gonna have to pull out something fancy if they want to try and full hold watch point against Catloaf.
Well, they're pulling out something, all right. The Torb and the Ash, things that we haven't seen before. Ash, maybe not as surprising as the Torb. Ignition Frenzy probably predicting the dive, but going to be a very interesting. Catloaf going what we thought. This is a dive map. Going dive as well. Ignition Frenzy getting what they wanted.
Yeah, Catloaf, they're feeling pretty good on this comp. Not gonna swap off that. Ignition, I like that they're swapping something up here. Tanic on the Torbjorn, it's definitely gonna spell anti-dive, right? But this means that you're not gonna have anybody to put that pressure onto Laura here. Andrew can try their best, but the Widow versus Ash duel, very, very difficult. So they're gonna have to be really careful of this Widowmaker and hope that they can just sustain through the dives and have...
Oh!
Andrew
Disgusting.
falling to Laura. That was a beautiful
so early. And to find a little bit more, but we'll not be able to. Ignition Frenzy respecting it a little bit more.
Yeah, that's exactly what Catloaf wanted to open with here, right? Pretty much the only player that's going to be able to put pressure on you. Oh, Domination, though. Stepping up, they are going to try to take out Laura here. Will survive through it, and the payload just rolling forward for Catloaf here, while Ignition Frenzy going to have to get a regroup going.
Yeah, Domination just barely not able to secure Slore as the healing, the support, the peel is there, and Ice Bear looking for a little bit more, trying to disrupt the staging onto the blue boxes, but it's going to be Domination that finds Lore. It prevents their setup. This Torb definitely making it very difficult, and so is Domination, finding Cry and Ice Bear, only barely escaping with his life, but it's going to be Dabmaster that is lucky enough. No, not lucky enough, but it will not cost Domination's life. They will not hunt that down. Let the baby diva be.
This does mean that Domination currently out of mech, so Ignition is at a bit of a disadvantage here, and Laura finding the headshot onto Domination. You're going to see all of Ignition Frenzy just back up here. You cannot afford to have another member picked, so we see them regrouping over in the server. The supports will be set up on the high ground, I expect, and Catloaf, they're going to have some time to push this card a little bit. You see they have two members on that, trying to move it forward as quickly as possible.
Yeah, Tanic be in a little bit of a tough position, but will just be able to escape. But Catloaf has found where all of Ignition Fury is, and they just barely get Forks, and now it's looking dire. Andrew, though, does find Koi. That is going to be an incredibly important pick, and now Laura gets hunted down by Domination. Will find the pick, but not without losing back. The bomb is going to be used to get Beck back, and now Catloaf in a strange position to be in.
Yeah, they're Ignition Frenzy gonna be able to catch these supports of Catloaf off late, so burning valuable time off the clock here, exactly what they need. I do like that bomb to remech from Domination, although you know you're not gonna get any kills from it. You really need to stay in this mech, and Ignition Frenzy, they've built up to pretty much 4 other ultimates here, so feeling pretty good about it. Like you said, Swag, this Torb pick is actually kind of working out for Ignition Frenzy. It's really hard for Icer to get any value on this Genji, and Domination is doing an excellent job of shutting down Laura and keeping their backline alive.
Yeah, but this is a really deep dive from Domination, and it will not be successful. Ends up getting picked out, and now that is massive. Catloaf going to be, oh, maybe not quite Domination, just barely getting out, but now no one is there to stop Ice Bear's Nanoblade, but mechanically fails, not able to get up, finds nothing with the Nanoblade, and now the Bob has been used, and it's going to be a thorn in Catloaf's side. It will end up being the death of Ice Bear that was not able to find anything with the Nanoblade, and now Catloaf in a really tough position.
Yeah, Catloaf has got to be stressing a little bit here because Nanoblade was your big fight winning ultimate there, and Frenzy still holding on to the Nano of their own. You see Koi is trying to dislodge Domination here, but the Nano goes over onto Domination.
Domination does end up getting slept though, unable to take full advantage of the nano and is going to be forced to leave. And now Domination just needs to not be so aggressive like before and is looking for a little bit more. Going to be put some pressure on by Koi, trying to escape, will be able to escape, but is low, and Catloaf are pressing their advantage. Koi pressuring the point, and now this rally looking for a little bit more, will find Tanic B, but Domination is there to punish Cry, gets the pick. Now they are down one support. Koi still pushing the objective, will find Domination. Now they're leaving the Baby Diva B once more to get the rest of the picks on their team. 2 on the point. It's just the Ashe and the Ana bomb going to be used to get their mech back, and Catloaf in a much closer than expected game just barely scrapes out to watch point. Welcome back, everyone, to our intermediate division. Here we have Catloaf versus Ignition Frenzy, and things have not gone well for Ignition Frenzy so far. Struggling a little bit, although the maps have been close. Catloaf currently 2 and Ignition Frenzy 0, but things might change soon. Ignition Frenzy, we've seen them start to pick up steam. They had a really strong defense on Watchpoint Gibraltar, so it's time to put what they've learned against playing against Catloaf into action.
Yeah, into action, and although they did just lose their map pick on Watchpoint Gibraltar, like you said, Zwack, it was close towards the end. They were starting to understand how they needed to play against Catloaf, picking up some team compositions that were going to deny Catloaf some value. So again, map pick for Ignition, and they're going to take us into New Junk City.
Exactly, in New Junk City, a very interesting choice for Ignition Fury. This is kind of a map type that both these teams have maybe struggled with, have kind of strayed away from. I mean, they've picked a lot of different maps, and New Junk City, not a common one, but clearly they think that this is going to be their map pick. Catloaf has played a wide variety. We've seen them play the Brawl, the Poke, the Dive now after Watchpoint Gibraltar, so maybe Ignition Frenzy, like, all right, we can play Rush, similar to Brawl, but a much faster tempo. If we can play faster than you want to take your time and strategize. We just want to go rely on our mechanical playstyle, and that is what I would expect to see when we hit New Junk City.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Zwack. Catloaf, they do a great job of coming into these fights with plans ready. You can see that they're getting set up on the off angles. They're rotating into positions that are going to favor them. And exactly like you said, if Ignition can kind of catch Catloaf in these rotations, catch Catloaf as they're trying to get set up on these flanks, that's where they're going to be able to get an advantage. And once Ignition gets one pick, they do a pretty good job of just kind of rolling through it and finding pick after pick and prolonging these fights. So that's going to be kind of their best hope here on these Flashpoint maps. I do think that sometimes they can be a little unforgiving, right? Because these Flashpoint maps, they tick up so fast in percentage. You only get a handful of fights on these points. So if you can get control of the point and then just stagger out your opponent, that's going to put you in prime position to take this map.
It is a good point, because we've seen a lot from Catloaf so far is they'll take the first point and then maybe Ignition Fury gets it back, but then eventually, so far, the narrative has been that Catloaf gets it back. You don't have those kinds of chances on Clash. So if you're Ignition Fury, Frenzy, you want to make sure that you get the point first. Ideally, otherwise it's going to be an uphill battle, and that is best left avoided when you're going up against Catloaf.
Yeah, you don't want to take an uphill battle against a team that hasn't lost a match since week 1. You want to give yourself every possible advantage here. And speaking of advantages, heading into New Junk City, could favor Ignition Frenzy here because they've at least played this once. Catloaf, though, they also have played this, have not lost on it. However, if you're Ignition Frenzy, you're definitely not heading over to Saravasa with the 1-3 streak. So if you're looking to take one of these Flashpoint maps where you can play really fast, play really aggressively, let's head over to New Junk City. You have the 1 win on it, and you're feeling pretty comfortable on it.
For sure. Flashpoint, not any of these teams' clear preference. We don't see them picking it all the time. Well, they've played against it a lot, especially on Saravasa, but definitely not their favorite. So really interesting to see Ignition Frenzy pull this out, potentially trying to find more of a weakness in Catloaf. Really interested to see what they come out on. We see Queen fairly often, but they have tried to run the Doom before. A map where you could get away with running the Doom if you really wanted to, although they've kind of strayed away from it immediately once it fails, so we'll see if they try starting out on it once again.
We'll be loading into New Junk City here, checking out all the ducks that we can find on this map in all their snazzy outfits.
It is a pretty cool duck, I will say.
Catloaf and Ignition Frenzy Counting down on the clock here. Spawn doors about to open. Looks like both teams going to be locking into a brawl style composition. Orisa mirrors on both sides. We do see that Brig Juno backline that we were expecting. DPS lineup a little bit different for both sides. We do see Tanic be over on that Mei, so looking to get the walls, try to split off Catloaf. However, Catloaf has the Genji Sojourn, which is going to allow them to take lots of angles and put damage into Ignition Frenzy on lots of different areas.
Exactly. So if you're Ignition Frenzy, you need to be playing proactively. You can't let Catloaf get set up. And right now, Koi, just trading blows right now with Domination, kind of has a little bit of the lead. Domination getting a little bit low, and that's the cue for Catloaf to go in. They're setting in the Juno ring and getting extremely low. Domination does end up falling, and Catloaf still in a very good position. Dabmaster brawling it out with Fork. Fork will end up falling and join the rest of Ignition Frenzy in the spawn room.
Yeah, unfortunate for Ignition Frenzy, just not quite getting to the position where they really need to be, right? That we need to see Ignition Frenzy engaging with these Mei walls. If you're gonna play the Mei, you need to be looking to split off one of these members of Catloaf. You can't sit back and let Laura just pound damage in with that Sojourn and Koi as well. So you want to take space, and that's exactly what they're looking to do right now.
Yeah, Ring put in to help some rotations get out, and Lore ends up finding Tanic be in the middle of it. Icebear are going to be finding Forks, and Catloaf putting on a dominant show, not quite able to find Cry despite Ignition Frenzy's best efforts, and now it looks like Catloaf will be securing this first point, but Ignition Frenzy has been playing very quickly. They will get one more fight if they want to.
Yeah, they could get the one more fight here. Catloaf has set up on so many angles. They've done so much damage that already almost all 5 ults on live for the side of Catloaf. So it's going to be really, really hard for Ignition Frenzy to push into this fight. Honestly, and if you can't build up one of these support ults, you might want to just take a fight, get some ults out from Catloaf, and just move on to the next point. But looks like they will look to take the fight right on point.
Yeah, and they are making a lot of rotations, probably kind of isolated from the rest of the fight right now. But Lore, Overclock coming in, trying to find a pick, but will not be able to do so. Just gonna get chased down by Domination, but will actually find the point, but not before Catloaf ends up capping the point, and Ignition Frenzy forced to fall later. The rally maybe somewhat wasted by Cry. Not necessarily needed, but they got the point regardless.
Yeah, that's honestly exactly how Ignition Frenzy needed to play that. They walked in, they forced a fight on point. Catloaf not eager to let that point flip over to Ignition Frenzy, so they commit ultimates there. However, Ignition Frenzy walking into this fight, they have 4 ultimates online. We do see Andrew swap off of the Cassidy onto the Sojourn, going to look to match. So Ignition in a good place. Andrew finds the first pick to open this fight.
Yeah, that first pick is massive. That was a lot of pressure. Lore was being a huge problem for them previously, and now Koi pushing back in, has the surge, and will look to use it, pulling them back onto the high ground, and it's going to get Andrew very low. The blade there to follow up, but the Blizzard going to force Icebear out, and now it's Ignition Frenzy chasing down the rest of Catloaf. Koi trying to get out with the rest of the team, but Domination going in extremely far. Lore does end up falling, so does Cry. And one by one, Catloaf ends up getting staggered. Koi falling shortly after, though, will be able to get out, just barely getting the cooldowns back in time. And Ignition Frenzy respecting Catloaf enough to take the victory they've won and leave.
Yeah, I like that aggression from Ignition Frenzy. Once you push up, keep getting the stagger kills, burn time off this clock, the percentage ticks up so quickly. Ignition Frenzy already up above 50%. Catloaf, we do see Ice Air swap off over onto the Reaper, and Dabmaster gonna commit this orbital ray on the high ground here.
Absolutely. Koi, though, trying to find a little bit more. They have the orbital ray to do it, and Koi ends up finding 1. Dabmaster going to make it 2, fighting to pick onto Bunny, and now Koi chasing down the rest of the team. Dabmaster finds the second pick in this fight, in the Mei wall going to be used, but unsuccessfully, to try and save Domination. And now Catloaf doing the same thing Ignition Frenzy did to them. Give some respect and back off.
Yeah, the Catloaf, you see, they know exactly how to get value from their ultimates. Positioned perfectly from Dabmaster on that high ground. They push forward, force Ignition Frenzy off of that high ground, and walk them right off the point. However, Ignition Frenzy are coming back in here. Tanakby has built up to that Blizzard, and Andrew almost up to that Overclock. So both DPS ults online here, and this is a really great point for both the Mei ult on the point, or for Andrew to take it around the point.
Now Icer in a really bad spot, just barely will be able to get out, but the Blizzard is ready for them. The ring going to be coming out, Catloaf not necessarily taking full advantage of it. Now Cry just making sure that Koi stays safe in a good position. Will be able to find domination, and the Blizzard not going to be able to do very much. Icer ends up finding Bunny, and Lore finds a last pick onto Ignition Fury, getting Fork, and now Catloaf secures the second point on New Junk City.
Yeah, that's putting them at a map point. If they can cap the next one, that's gonna put them up 3-0 in this series. But Ignition Frenzy, they're holding on. Andrew still has that overclock online. Bunny and Forks both with the support alts online as well. So big chance to hold this point. And Ignition Frenzy already set up on the high ground, but Laura commits the OC, finds Bunny.
Yeah, Lore going on a little bit of a flank, will try to find some of the supports and does successfully get Fork. Andrew, though, has to trade onto Lore, but puts himself in a bad position, and Koi ends up finding the pick. So this is a very dominant start. This Ignition Frenzy needs to recover. They have already lost the start on this objective.
Yeah, we'll see Tanic B swap off of the Mei, opt to match on that Reaper. Gonna look to just take full frontline fights here. I think that Andrew's gonna have to really look to take an angle with this overclock. That's how we saw Lore get so much value from it. But no, all of Ignition Frenzy are gonna walk through the cave, commit the ultimate from Bunny.
Yeah, Icer tried to find some with the ult, but the stun was there. Andrew and hit the headshot. Domination. Finding Koi, and Lore finds Bunny, but it won't be enough. And the point swaps in favor of Ignition Frenzy.
Ooh, Ignition Frenzy, excellent pathing through there. I was thinking that Andrew needed to take that off angle, but no, they commit as 5. They stay in Bunny's orbital ray, everybody getting the healing and the damage boost from it, and Ignition Frenzy able to hold on to the rally from Forks and the Terra Surge from Domination here, which is really great because on the side of Catloaf, you see Cry with the rally and Koi just building up to that Terra Surge here now. So Ignition Frenzy are set up on the high ground here. They have the positional advantage, and Domination can just look for a Terra Surge as soon as Catloaf walk in.
Yeah, and it's going to be Andrew that finds a pick onto Dabmaster before the Terra Surge even comes in. Cry in a bit of a bad position. The rally was used, but will not be able to get out. Tanekby ends up finding Icer, and now Koi falling shortly after. They're actually going to leave Koi to be staggered a little bit, not forcing the kill. Leaving Koi at 1, and it's going to be Andrew that finishes Koi off. And now Catloaf needs to reset. Probably won't be able to touch him. We'll be playing for the next point.
Yeah, that's a massive stagger onto Koi. Ignition Frenzy needed this percentage build. They will end up capping this point. You can see Catloaf just sitting in spawn waiting to see where the next point will take them. And we are heading over. Looks like Catloaf going to be able to get set up with the positional advantage here already. Lore has that OC available as well, so they're going to be able to put a lot of pressure on Ignition Frenzy and potentially just keep them trapped in this corridor.
Absolutely. Tanekby going deep, sped into the back line, and the Reaper Blossom is there. Will be able to find 2 under Cry and Icer. Lore trying to even it out, finds Fork, but it will not be enough. Tanekby putting the pressure onto Koi. Koi getting incredibly low, will be falling, and now just Lore preventing them from capping the point and will shortly die.
Oh, that was a massive play from Ignition Frenzy. Bunny with the speed ring onto Tanekby. Tanekby, I think, actually started the Blossom just as they reached kind of the end of that speed ring. So they just momentum carried them straight into Catloaf. Really great value. And Bunny has already almost built up to that orbital ray here. Andrew holding almost up to that OC. Koi, however, does have that Terra Surge online. So they're going to be able to just force a fight on this point. They can get value from the Terra Surge from Koi and just force Frenzy off the point.
Exactly, but Bunny has the Juno Wall and will use it. The orbital ray comes down. Koi not going to be able to find anything with the Terra Surge, but kind of forces them back. Lore trying to even it out, but takes a huge hit. Andrew ends up finding Dabmaster amid all of it, and now, shortly after Cry, the rest of Catloaf falls, and it's looking dominant for Ignition Frenzy.
Yeah, they've woken up here. That was excellent support ult from Bunny to keep everybody alive through the Terra Surge from Koi. And then Andrew popping that OC, just cleaning up the remaining members of Catloaf. And that's going to be Ignition Frenzy taking their second map point, sending us to the 5th and final point here on New Junk City. It's going to be a battle to see which one of these teams are going to come out on top. Catloaf getting set up on this point first. However, they did get set up on the last point first, and Ignition Frenzy were able to take that away from them. This time, though, holding on to the Death Blossom from Iceair. If you can funnel all the members of Ignition Frenzy in here, you'd be able to get big value from this ultimate, but looks like they've actually already spotted him out, so no surprise Blossom incoming.
Yeah, but the spear is out. That was a big deterrent, and now something they want to deal with. The speed ring is in, but Iceair maybe not going to use it. Ends up falling regardless as Bunny hits the rocket and Iceair falls, and now Catloaf in a bit of a pickle. Dabmaster has the orbital ray out, and that's going to give them a huge advantage. Lore trying to find a little bit, has the fully charged railgun, but not going to be able to make much of it, of anything with it. Koi finds Fork though amid all of it, and the rest of Ignition Frenzy will end up falling. And the point goes in favor of Catloaf.
Yeah, domination. We saw the cooldowns come out there. Ignition Frenzy must have known that Iceair has this Blossom online. As soon as we saw the spear out, domination opt to use the spin instead, try to deny any value, and then again following up with the Terra Surge. So Iceair not able to get that Blossom out. However, you don't feel too bad about that if you're Catloaf. You won this fight off the back of the OC from Lore and the Orbital Ray from Dabmaster. So you're holding on to your 3 other ultimates and you're in control of this point. It's going to be hard for Ignition Frenzy to push forward. Maybe we see another speed into Death Blossom come out, but this point is so much bigger than the last one. Hard to get value.
Goes in deep, but won't be able to make much of it with anything. The stun comes out from the rally, and that's going to be the Death Blossom, but Iceair finds much more value with his own. Going to be able to find Bunny and Fork, and later on Andrew. And Catloaf very quickly keeping the point after a bold play from Tannic.
Yeah, Tannic, I saw the vision, but Cry had that rally ready to go. You do not want to teleport into a brig with the rally online. The stun comes out, able to sustain through that ultimate from Tannic and Ignition Frenzy. This is do or die here. They're going to have to get the touch, and it's going to be the Orbital Ray coming out from Bunny to keep them in this fight.
Yeah, if there was an ult, it would be Orbital Ray and Lore trying to make something of it. They're not going to be able to engage, and Andrew, with the help of the Orbital Ray, does find Dabmaster and Iceair falling shortly after. Catloaf very quickly giving up the point after this Orbital Ray came out, and Ignition Frenzy capping it, not letting them lose the map so soon.
Ooh, excellent job from Ignition Frenzy. You walk in, you take that fight with just one ultimate used, but on the side of Catloaf, they played that really smart too, right? They're at 99%. They literally just need to win one more fight, and they take New Junk City. So they take the reset. They're coming back into this with ultimates, and we see the speed ring in, looking to engage, put some pressure on the point, and Andrew has that OC online.
Yeah, Overclock though not going to really be making much of it. Lore looking to find a little bit. The Orbital Ray is there, but domination ends up finding 2 picks. McCoy evening it out, finds Fork. Both teams currently even, but Dabmaster finds Andrew, and domination falling shortly after. It's just Tannic that can touch it out. Catloaf has secured the point. Overtime going to be ticking down, and that is New Junk City. Catloaf in a 3-2 match secures victory.
Oh, excellent plays from Catloaf there. The tempo, the ebb and flow, just backing out when Ignition Frenzy chose to commit the ultimates, and then Dabmaster finding the 3K to just clean up that last fight on New Junk City. Ignition Frenzy, they had some flashy plays. They capped 2 points, but not able to secure that third one. And that puts them at match point, right? This is going to have to be a reverse sweep if Ignition Frenzy want to take this win against Catloaf. It's been so close so far. They just haven't been able to pick up their map win.
Exactly. A reverse sweep is what they need, but there is a glimmer of possibility in that. They have so far in all of their matches just barely start to turn it into their favor near the very end. Well, you're nearing the end of your time in the intermediate division. Now is the time to do the same thing that you did on Watchpoint Gibraltar, that you did in New Junk City. Turn it around in the end if you want to secure victory here. They have done it in their games. Now they have to do it in their match against Catloaf.
Yeah, this is it. So It's gonna be map pick going back over to Ignition Frenzy. I do think that Brawl playstyle did work in their favor. They definitely could opt to send us again to a Brawl map. I think just needing to get a step ahead of Catloaf, right? Catloaf is just getting set up in these positions where they have their DPS on one side, they have their tank on one side, and everybody is hitting their shots. So the members of Ignition Frenzy are just falling so quickly. So Ignition Frenzy, they're gonna have to step up their game here if they want to get a reverse sweep against this undefeated team.
Absolutely. And I think what we've seen, the big determining factor for Ignition Frenzy was really their tempo and their ultimate usage. Near the end there, it was so obvious that they had a much better grasp of the tempo. They were setting the pace of the fights, and they used their ultimates really, really well. They won a fight off the back of one orbital ray. And when you do that, that sets you up for success because you'll always have more ultimates in your future fights. If you can keep that up and keep doing that, that caused a lot of problems for Catloaf. And so that is a big thing if you're Ignition Frenzy that you need to keep doing going forward.
Yeah, that's such a good point, Zoak. We really need to see the proactive gameplay coming out from the side of Ignition Frenzy on both of those points that they took. They won those fights by going in, getting aggressive, using their ults first, exactly like you said. So they're going to have to really just step up, have the confidence to go into those fights, take them on your terms, because if you take them on Catloaf's terms, you are not going to win those fights.
They did finally pick their map, Ignition Frenzy, picking what might be, if things don't go well for them, their final map pick. Runasapi is going to be where we are headed and where our potential final showdown might be.
It's exciting. Runasapi, we've seen in all of these SPCS matches, we've seen some interesting compositions come out here. Definitely can see the Brawl. We've seen the Poke come out. Lots of really long range sightlines here. And maybe we've seen some dive for a handful of folks. I suppose it's maybe not the essential dive map, but definitely comps that Ignition Frenzy have shown that they're comfortable on. They're going to work on Runasapi here.
Precisely. And Runasapi, this is actually favorable stats-wise. Catloaf only just played it in their semifinal match, and they lost on Runasapi. Ignition Frenzy has a little bit more experience. They have a win and a loss on the map. They have done this way more often. They have played it before, so this is statistically favorable for them, which is the first time in this series where, at very least on paper, this match is in their favor. Now, semifinals, that's a tough matchup. Those teams are still really good, so a loss there, not the most surprising. So Ignition Frenzy, this is still not free for them in any sense.
No, definitely not. They're gonna have to put the work in. They're gonna have to be very coordinated, talk about things before they go into these fights. We can't just see them holding the W key and hoping to get a pick, right? We need to see Ignition Frenzy come out with a plan, come out with a target. What cooldowns are you gonna use? Who are you gonna focus down? Because right now, that's what Catloaf is doing. Catloaf is getting up in these fights because they're all focusing down on the same target. They're using their cooldowns. They're really bullying the backline of Frenzy, and the DPS for the side of Catloaf just have so much space to work with Koi on the tank.
Yeah, but Domination, definitely a very good tank here as well. That has kind of been matching Koi. Maybe some really strange decisions on the D.Va, but we're probably not going to see the D.Va. Would expect to see the Orisa, and right on cue, Orisa's on both sides coming out, going very similar to what we saw on New Jug City, which, if you're in Ignition Frenzy, you had a really strong performance on the second half of that map. So maybe going something very similar to what you did before is exactly what you want to be doing.
Yeah, exactly. If you found something that works, roll out on it. We will see Tanic be rolling out on that Torbjorn that we got a little peek of on Watchpoint Gibraltar. So Ignition Frenzy, they're playing very much like a anti-dive, lots of spam composition. However, on the side of Catloaf, they're rolling out with an Ashen of Pharah, so they're going to be able to do so much poke damage into this Ignition Frenzy lineup, and it's really going to be on Andrew and Tanic, be on the Soj and the Torbjorn to try and take this Pharah out of the sky.
Yeah, based on what Ignition Frenzy is doing, I don't think that they expected Catloaf to be rolling out on this, so this might be a little bit of a challenging fight going forward, but Cry just keeping the team up in the back line. Catloaf doing what they want to be doing, just applying poke, applying pressure, waiting for an opportunity to show itself.
Yeah, exactly. Catloaf can take these long fights here. The damage coming out from the Pharah and the Ashe, it happens over time, right? So if you can just out-damage the heals from the backline of Ignition Frenzy and find your first pick, that's when you're going to have the opportunity to walk forward. And Forks falls, and Catloaf is walking.
Catloaf just constantly beating Andrew, who is not interested in entertaining Cry in that fight. Ends up being their downfall, and Ignition Fury falls, and Catloaf gets secure of the objective. Looking pretty good so far, and Ignition Fury made some swaps to adjust to this.
Yeah, I like Tanic B swapping off of the Torbjorn. The turret is just going to get 0 value against an Orisa, Pharah, and Ashe. Everybody is going to be able to take your turret down. So Tanic B swapping over onto the Pharah. Going to try to look to match this poke damage that's coming out. And then Andrew opting to swap over to the Cassidy. Going to try to put some pressure onto Laura so that the damage from the Pharah can't come out from the side of Catloaf.
Yeah, both tanks just kind of exchanging blows, exchanging cooldowns right now, looking for an opportunity, and it's going to be Andrew that finds Ice Fair as an opportunity first off, but they have some ultimate advantage. Lure getting very close to this ult, but will end up falling, but Dammaster and Koi make up for it, getting 2 picks, both the Brig and the Cassidy, and now Cry getting extremely low, will fall to domination, and one by one, the rest of Catloaf falls, and Ignition Frenzy re-secures the objective.
Ooh, yeah, that was an excellent orbital ray coming out from Dapmaster to try and keep Catloaf alive, but Domination just survives through it, able to clean up Catloaf, and Catloaf, they committed ultimates there, right? They're only holding on to the barrage from Lure. We will see Ice Air swap over, gonna match the Cassidy so that we have the mirror on both sides here. Ignition Frenzy in control of this point, and Forks has that rally online, so going to be able to take a bit of a longer fight than you would usually be able to take here, and that's exactly what they need when they're pushing up on this golden line where they can secure the lead here.
Certainly, Domination kind of getting forced out. The rest of Ignition Frenzy taking a lot of poke damage, having trouble dealing with the angles, but Tanakby alleviates some of the pressure. Ice Rare ends up falling, and that is a great pick if you're Ignition Frenzy. Lure looking to try and even it out. The barrage coming out, but Tanakby has a barrage of their own that they will use to take out Lure, and now Catloaf, down a few people, is slowly getting whittled away by the rest of Ignition Frenzy, who caps the checkpoint. Now, looking for a little bit more Tanakby, not going to be able to find it now. The rest of Catloaf is there to poke them out.
Yeah, and you see Ignition Frenzy, they've capped this first point here, so they have their early spawns. They're opting to just wait for the rest of their members to come back. We do see that Andrew's still on the way back from spawn, so this fight, if Catloaf are able to find a pick here, that could be massive for them. They could turn this bot around and start walking with it on their own while Ignition is down 1.
There's going to be Lure that got very low. The Domination tried to punish, but now the Juno is out, but 2 people on Ignition Frenzy died at the same time that the orbital ray was used, and that is a huge advantage for Catloaf that match it with their own orbital ray that are now moving the objective back. But Ignition Frenzy does have good spawns.
Yeah, they do still have those good spawns. We'll see Tanakby swap off of the Pharah. Gonna go over onto the Genji. We do see that Laura is now on the Ashe as well, up to 50%, so I guess they've been on that for a little minute. Looks like Catloaf, they're pushing towards the checkpoint here, but Ignition gonna look to take the fight before that can be capped.
Ice Rare trying to find an opening, will not be able to find anything. The Deadeye from Andrew just going to get canceled by the spear, but now the rest of Ignition Frenzy are going in. The rally being hunted down by Andrew, but it won't be enough. 2 people dead on the side of Ignition Frenzy from Catloaf. Gonna make that 3, gonna make that 4. Just looking for this one Genji, and that's going to be all they need to take this first checkpoint.
Yeah, taking this first checkpoint, and once we get through this brief pause, they might be able to take the lead here. The members of Ignition Frenzy are walking up quickly. Looks like they want to try and deny that, but no, not able to do that. Catloaf will find the lead here on Runesapi.
Yeah, Domination, there's a lot of people poking at them, but gets a great spear onto Lure, and now Catloaf in a bit of a tough position. They're getting extremely low. Domination tried to hunt down Koi and will just be able to do so. Andrew finding Koi amid all of it, and Tanic B helping out onto Dabmaster. And now Ignition Frenzy have reclaimed the objective. Ice Rare jumping off to reset with the rest of the team.
Yeah, Domination, an excellent showing on the Orisa here, hitting spear after spear and able to find that first pick onto Laura is massive for them. The Bob coming out from Laura, going to look to deny the touch, but no, Bob not quite on the bot, so the bot will have some progress.
Yeah, exactly. Laura just taking full advantage of this high ground, pumping shots into Ignition Frenzy and just trying to get whatever they poke they can, but they need to be able to respect Andrew. The railgun can easily take their head off, and Icer ends up getting hunted down. Laura, though, finds Buddy amid all of it. The blade gets Dabmaster, and that's the advantage that they needed. Koi, though, ends up finding Domination and Andrew trying to recover this objective. It's still close. There's two people at Terra Surge coming in, gets both of them extremely low, but Koi not quite able to capitalize it. There's still two people left. The Golden staying alive a little bit longer, but now the supports are there on the side of Catloaf. Everyone is back, and they were just barely able to beat back Ignition Frenzy.
It was so close. Koi had a sliver of HP. Dabmaster able to get back just in time to keep their tank alive, and Catloaf holding on to the bot here. Ignition Frenzy is regrouping, though. They have both support ults online, and Domination looking to go in aggressive.
Yeah, the Deadeye going to try and counter the aggression here, and will be able to do so, pushing a lot of them back and getting Domination incredibly low. Not able to keep Ice Rare up, though. The rest of Catloaf, 3 people down, just going to be stalling on the fight. Dabmaster gets a pick onto Tanic B, but will fall shortly after, and that is just Koi resetting with the rest of the team.
Domination showing a stellar performance there, and so much bravery in the face of a Deadeye from Ice Air, but the Juno ult from Bunny able to sustain Domination through that, and the damage boost enough to clean up a kill on the side of Catloaf. We will see Ice Air swap off of that Cassidy, gonna match on the Genji. We're back to the mirror match, and that's gonna favor Ignition at this point because they have 4 ultimates coming on the board here.
Yeah, Domination, though, has the Terra Surge looking to make something of it. Running in with the spear, going to pop it immediately. The rest of Catloaf just barely able to escape, but uses a lot of ults in order to do so. Cry getting incredibly low, but won't quite fall just yet. Now the rest of Catloaf need to reset to deal with all of the aggression and all the poke that they have taken. Now, Ignition Frenzy popping a rally of their own. Cry just trying to keep their team up, but will struggle to do so a little bit. Tanic B now has the blade, and it's going to be something that Catloaf have to be aware of. The Tanic B blade has been very deadly before, but doesn't need to use it quite yet. They're gaining plenty of cart progress without needing to spend any of their ultimates. Tanic B still just poking, staging a little bit as these teams prepare.
Yeah, the Terra Surge gonna come out from Koi here. Doesn't find any of the members of Domination. However, trades coming back from both sides. But remember, Catloaf, their spawn is much closer than Ignition Frenzy, and they will be finding the kills to anyways. Don't even need to go back to the spawn room. Taking control of this bot, however, we see that Ignition Frenzy got so much push on their attack there. So Catloaf, they have a long way to walk here, and they're holding on to the Orbital Ray from Dabmaster. Lore almost built up to that overclock, but looking at the side of Ignition Frenzy, Tanic B still has that blade online, Slack.
Yeah, and look at this. Ignition Frenzy doing what they said. They are setting the tempo, engaging right away with the blade. Catloaf, though, ready to respect that, ready to leave, but unfortunately, Cry and Dabmaster unable to do so, stuck on the objectives, and now are forced to go back to the spawn room and reset with the rest of the team.
Yeah, getting their regroup, like you said, their Tanic B with the blade, although didn't find a whole lot of flashy kills, still got so much value from it. Found the one pick onto Cry to split and forces the Ignition Frenzy to just back up. So Catloaf to just back up, so they're coming back in. Lore has the overclock and gonna be popping that here.
Yeah, you need to be confident if you're Catloaf, and that is what we are seeing. Going in with the overclock, Domination ends up falling amid all of it. The rally in there to help as well, and now the rest of Ignition Frenzy falling. It's just Tanic B stalling a little bit, but Lore eventually finds the pick, and Catloaf has secured the objective, but it's currently overtime.
It's overtime. Catloaf has to keep one player on this bot at all times. We do see 5 of them stacking on it now, opting to just stay as a group. Don't get picked off by Andrew or Tanikby on the flank. Ignition Frenzy coming in aggressive. Domination has that Terra Surge available to them.
Yeah, Terra Surge gonna make it difficult to stay on the objective, but the Blade not quite able to find anything, but now Domination going incredibly low. Catloaf trying to push their advantage, but won't be able to do so. Icerer ends up getting pushed out, and the rally is going to be able to keep everyone up. People on Catloaf are falling coy. The Terra Surge doesn't find anything, and Domination still has their own, going to use it to get the elimination onto Koi. And for the first time in the series, Ignition Frenzy takes a map. Runasapi,
Ignition Frenzy, they're putting themselves back into this match. Like you said, Zwack, taking their first win against Catloaf in this series, holding on. They're at the edge here, but keeping it alive for them. Excellent job on Runasapi. We saw the bit of a slow start to go there, but like you said, Zwack, once they started just taking control of the fights and walking in at their own tempo, taking the fight on their own terms, they were catching Catloaf off guard every single time.
Exactly. And I think once they got a little bit of an advantage, that's really what we started to see. They really pressed that advantage. If there's one thing that we have seen Ignition Frenzy do that they are very good at, is pressing their advantage. When they had the lead, they would let Catloaf spend all the ults that they wanted to, and they would just choose to lose that fight because they knew they would not lose that lead. They had the good spawns. They could just wait, burn time off the clock as Catloaf pushed it back, and then reclaim it with their ult and get a little bit farther with their card push.
Yeah, excellent job. Really well played, and that's exactly what we needed to see. So, yeah, Ignition Frenzy's really locking in here. However, this does put it for the first time since the first map. It's going to be back over onto Catloaf to pick a map, and they're going to be able to pick something that they're comfortable on. And remember, we're running out of map types here, right? So we can pick any map type we want, but it can't be one that's been played yet. So our options are kind of limited. We could head over to Clash. We could head over to a hybrid map potentially. Both of these options, they're going to be able to run a composition that they're comfortable on if you're Catloaf.
Exactly. And we do now know Catloaf very quickly deciding what map they want to play. And it's going to be hybrid, and it's going to be Hollywood, a map that Catloaf has performed pretty well on so far. And this is probably either their first or second best map. They really want to close this out now. They're going to end it now. They do not want Ignition Frenzy to gain any steam because they've seen what happens in their matches when Ignition Frenzy starts to get a little bit of a lead, a little bit of an advantage. And so Hollywood is their map to close out this series.
Yeah, the 2-0 for Catloaf on this map. Definitely feeling comfortable here. You will be able to play quite a few of the heroes that you already like to play, right? We could play the Orisa here. We could see the Sojourn. We could see the Ashe here. Even Widowmaker potentially an option, although I do think that Catloaf has been doing a really good job that they might not feel pressured to pull out that Widowmaker, right? Sometimes the Widowmaker is a little bit of a Hail Mary play, so we could potentially see it from Ignition. But either way, heading into Hollywood here, it makes a lot of sense for Catloaf map-wise. However, on the side of Ignition Frenzy, although they haven't played Hollywood, they have played Blizzard World 3 times and won that. And Blizzard World and Hollywood, they kind of play in similar styles, right? Where the first point can be a dive or kind of like a brawl. Second point, a little bit more dive favored. And then rolling into that third point, it's kind of back into the brawl favor. So whatever compositions or plans that Ignition Frenzy have run on Blizzard World, they could potentially just mirror that over and play this on the Hollywood.
Yeah, exactly. So going to be very interesting to see. The fact that Ignition Frenzy has not played Hollywood yet kind of leaves it as just an unknown that Catloaf willing to take the risk on. Like you said, the fact that they have gotten 3 wins on Blizzard World is a really good statistic. So partially, it could also be because they don't want Ignition Frenzy to pick Blizzard World. that could very well be the strategy. Think that, okay, let's play it safe. We know that we have a decent shot on Clash, but our Hollywood, not so strong. We don't want them to get this pick, so we'll just pick it now. Also, very, very valid strategy here that they're pulling out. So really interesting to see how these teams end up playing. Ignition Frenzy opting for the brawl first. Catloaf going to dive like you had mentioned. Time will tell if this is the map that Catloaf need.
Yeah, I do see. We see Laura has opted to play that Widowmaker. Andrew matching the Widow as well. So we're back onto the Widow duel. The DP or the support lineup from Catloaf, maybe not aware, but no. Andrew is caught out. So the support's safe in the cafe for now. However, Ignition Frenzy domination on that Orisa, looking to take some space, open up angles for Andrew to hit some shots onto the back line of Catloaf.
Yeah, Andrew looking for a little bit. Not going to be able to find it yet, but there's plenty of people on this high ground. Needs some like a dive, though, but Koi is there to apply the pressure and ends up getting the pick. Widowmakers are traded, but a massive nade is going to apply incredible pressure onto Ignition Frenzy, and it's just going to halt their entire push.
Yeah, excellent nade from Dabmaster finds 2 members of Ignition Frenzy. Everybody gonna have to just back up, and we're gonna see Tannic swap over on to the Torbjorn. So interesting, the attack Torb, it can be done. It can be done, especially where we have Koi on that the monkey, so you're gonna be able to put a lot more pressure onto the tank of Catloaf, and we see domination just walking right in onto this point.
Yeah, Ice are looking for a little bit of a picks, but the pressure is there. The rest of Ignition Frenzy has rotated onto the objective, and Catloaf scattering. They don't want to take this fight, but getting extremely low is Bunny. Pushed a little bit too far, and she'll end up getting picked out. And now Icer, though, gets punished from Andrew, who will very quickly fall. No, it's going to be Fork that ends up falling to the Nano Koi, trying to recover this objective, putting plenty of shots, and it's going to need the Primal to secure this kill. Catloaf looking good with this recovery. Koi just needs to stay alive now, putting a lot of pressure onto the rest of Ignition Frenzy, and there's still plenty of people left though that will have to be dealt with. Lore needs to find a pick, needs to find an equalizer. Domination will be that equalizer, ends up falling, and Lore looking for a little bit more, won't be able to find it, but that's okay. Catloaf very quickly regaining control of the objective.
Yeah, 2 ticks gained for Ignition Frenzy there. I think that they committed into that fight really hard, right? We saw the window come out from Forks. We will see Forks swap over onto the Kiriko. Oh, Bunny sent straight back to spawn by Lore, so Ignition Frenzy. Oh, nope, just a Torb turret. They're all right. So Ignition Frenzy gonna be coming back into this fight with the Orbital Ray from Bunny. And Tannic gonna be building up to that Torbjorn ult as well. If they can get set up on the point, that's an excellent ult to just zone Catloaf off the point. And the opening pick from Andrew onto Dabmaster, perfect.
Yeah, 2 opening picks are going to make this incredibly difficult, especially with the Orbital Ray to secure this win. Now Lore has forced to back up, taking too much damage, and that's going to be all Ignition Frenzy need. Just biding their time until they found the kills they needed and has secured the first point.
I have to say, the Torbjorn pick from Tannic is really putting in work for the side of Ignition Frenzy here. Koi gonna find Bunny, but Cry traded out in this fight.
Yeah, domination gets extremely far in, but that's really going to be going into favor of Catloaf. They will have the rotations there. They just need to deal with this Torb turret. It has been a pain in their side. They also need to deal with Andrew, who ends up finding Lore that peaks a little bit too far.
Yeah, the Torb turret, it, like you said, Zwack, they really need to deal with it because it's putting a lot of pressure onto Ice Air. He's not really able to get any flanks in, which is really what you need from your Genji on the side of Catloaf domination, finding Dabmaster early.
Yeah, it's just, there's so much sustain. The turret makes it difficult to dive. It's an angle that needs to be dealt with, and then you just have this target that's really difficult to engage on because of that overload. You can just get a really good dive, but the armor is really difficult to deal with. So Catloaf making some adjustments, and now Domination looking to use this Terror Surge.
Yeah, it makes sense. Koi swapping off of that monkey, opting to go over onto the Diva. Gonna be able to deal a little bit more with Tannic on this Torbjorn, and also gonna be able to contest this high ground. The blade comes out from Ice Air onto the high ground.
Yeah, not gonna be able to find anything yet. Ice Air getting incredibly low. We'll opt to use the Mega. Not gonna be able to get much, but Domination ends up finding one, and it's gonna be Cry. Gonna make it two with Dab Master. Now both supports are down. Laura, though, finds Andrew amid all of it, and Tanakby gets Ice Air. Trades going back and forth. Now Bunny falling from Koi, and Domination shortly after. It's just Tanakby on the objective. We have seen Tanakby be a menace before. Can they cap the objective on their own? The answer is no, and ends up rotating out.
Yeah, not going to be able to cap the objective, but hey, you did get Koi out of mech here, however, hitting their shots quite rapidly, and Tanakby going to be sent back to the spawn by Ice Air, so Ignition Frenzy forced to take a regroup here. The sights will come out from both Widowmakers, so sights available for both teams here. Ignition Frenzy still getting this regroup though. Tanakby has almost built up to that Molten Core again. We do see the rush online for Forks. I think Ignition Frenzy gonna want to opt to take this high ground, control, force Ice Air off of the high ground, who is now swapped over onto the Cassidy.
Yeah, they made a solid engagement onto Dab Master after seeing Dab Master isolated by the sites, but won't be able to find much with it. Now Dab Master just keeping the rest of their team alive, looking for a nade to hit this next engagement. Rally being used, going to force back the Kitsune, not going to allow them to get really much value of anything, but the rest of Ignition Frenzy is deep into the backline, finds Lore, but Koi ends up evening it out with a pick onto Andrew and Cry, just holding down this objective. Catloaf trying to make things work. The swaps are there onto the Tracer to try and get back, but Cry needs to find something. Domination is a huge pick onto Ignition Fury. It looks like Ignition Fury Frenzy going to be rotating out.
Yeah, 2 seconds on the clock here. Tanakby gonna be forced to drop onto the point. Domination does have that Terror Surge online, however, there's currently walking back from spawn.
Yeah, it's not gonna be enough. Tanakby gets one pick, but no one else from Ignition Frenzy is going to be able to touch, and they get some progress. Ignition Frenzy makes it right before the second checkpoint.
Yeah, the swaps coming out from Ignition Frenzy definitely did allow them to cap that first point and walk through the second point a little bit. But yeah, Catloaf stopping them just short of capping that second point on Hollywood. So Ignition Frenzy, they're in a position here where they have quite a few fights, right? If you can't manage to hold this first fight, at least you've pushed the cart far enough that you can get some fights on second point. You can get set up on those high grounds. Catloaf, however, they're looking pretty good. Koi, excellent on that tank, really putting so much pressure onto Domination. Domination matching as well, but I think the swap onto the Diva from Koi just allowing for so much more mobility, able to just avoid Domination on that Orisa a little bit and put more pressure onto the DPS of Ignition Frenzy that are really helping push these carts forward. Ignition on the defense here. Tanic gonna stick on that Torbjorn, which gonna be really painful on the defense. The Torbjorn was damaging on the attack, so now that they're in a defensive position, gonna look pretty good. On the side of Catloaf, probably not gonna lock into this. Dab Master maybe on the Ayari, maybe on the Moira.
Love to see some Moira. But it's gonna be what they were doing before.
Alas, Dab Master back over onto the Ana. We do have Lore on that Pharah here, so gonna be able to put in a lot of poke damage if they can just avoid getting shot out of the air by Andrew and staying out of the range of the turret of Tanakby.
Absolutely, Dab Master taking out that exact turret. Andrew looking to find an opportunity here. Just needs one chance to find an elimination, but will be spammed out by the rest of Catloaf. The nade going to be making Andrew get incredibly low, and Koi goes extremely deep to try and capitalize it, but unfortunately ends up getting punished by Tanakby. Will end up falling, tries to get the hammer kill, but that was a mistake. Lore ends up fighting Tanakby, and now they never actually eliminated Koi, who's halfway to getting the mech back. Some pressure going to be put on, and yeah, the mech is not there. The nade just barely hitting the objective, and that's going to allow Ignition Frenzy to not immediately lose his first point.
It was close though, Zwak. Not even a tick picked up for Catloaf there. The And the nade from Dapmaster into the cafe, really great, but the timing from Koi, not quite there, not able to get there in time, and the nade wears off just as Forks gets their nade online, so able to keep everybody alive and hit Koi with the purple, able to demac that D.Va. Domination, naded, falling low, but getting healed back up here, and Ignition Frenzy holding strong. Oh, but Laura finds the first pick onto Andrew and opens this fight up.
Yeah, that's going to relieve a lot of pressure that Tanic going to try to make over, but the sleep likely going to lead to an elimination, but no one is there to capitalize on it. They're in the rest of Ignition Frenzy. Catloaf getting multiple picks in, Koi going to make it a third, and Catloaf quickly wraps up this first point.
Yeah, that opening pick, exactly what Catloaf needed to be able to just file on to the point here. We will see Tanic B swap off of that Echo. Gonna go back over onto the Torbjorn. Domination trying to touch, but just melted as soon as they walked through that cafe. Andrew will find the pick onto Laura here, but Catloaf is just gonna be able to clean up the rest of Ignition Frenzy here and yeah, send them back to the spawn. We do see maybe Tanic B gets out with their life. Yes.
Looks like they will be able to do so.
So that's really good.
It's good for them, but Catloaf already has a huge advantage with this high ground already secured in Ignition Frenzy. We're quite ready for that. The Terra Surge not quite able to pull everyone off the high ground despite their best attempts, and now the Nanoblade going deep to sleep, not going to land. Ice Rare finds 3 people down on Ignition Frenzy, looking to make that a fourth as they try and burst down Domination. It's just Domination and Bunny, and just as quickly as the fight started, Catloaf ends it, and now Ignition Frenzy in a little bit of a tough spot. Catloaf very quickly getting a ton of cart progress that they would probably rather them not have.
Yeah, exactly, and Bunny did commit that Orbital Ray to try and sustain Ignition Frenzy through that Nanoblade, but it just wasn't enough. So Catloaf, they're set up on the high ground, like you said, Zwack, and they have cart progress just rolling through. Cry has that rally available. Koi does have the bomb as well. It's gonna be the rally coming up for Cry.
Yeah, the Nano on the far is going to apply some incredible damage. Tanic B just wraps up this fight. The rally not going to be able to find it and provide much value as Tanic B has just eliminated many key members of Catloaf, and now Cry not able to get out, but Koi will be able to do so.
Yeah, I like this Pharah swap for Tanic B. The Torbjorn just wasn't quite working. You weren't able to get as much value from that Torb turret in these really open point of Hollywood second. We will see the barrage almost coming online for Tanic B here. However, Catloaf, you have Koi with that D.Va. You have Laura on that Widowmaker. Even Dabmaster has a sleep available to them. So you're going to have to be really, really careful if you're the Pharah here. You really don't want to get too many trades out. You want to try to get a limbs and survive through this barrage.
Andrew looking to find a pick. A pick here would be huge, but Domination goes way too far into Catloaf and ends up getting punished for that aggression. The Terra Surge also used and not going to be able to find any value at all. And now Tanic B trying to even things out, has the barrage in order to do so, and Andrew has found Lore, so things are much more even than they were, but Ice Rare going to change things, but Tanic B takes out the support line of Catloaf, and the fight is over for Catloaf. Forced to go back to the spawn, potentially a big stagger onto Koi here.
Yeah, that's exactly what Tanic B needed, right? You get 2 kills from that barrage and you live through it. You demac the D.Va. Ignition Frenzy gets a massive stagger onto Koi, burning down the clock here. So really well played, and also shout out to Andrew who opened up that fight with the shot. And again, Andrew finding the opening pick. Catloaf gonna have to regroup, wait for Dabmaster to come back. Anna does have that Nano available, the Blade almost online for Ice Air as well, so we've seen them look to use that combo, got big value from it in the past. Ignition Frenzy, they don't have that Juno ult online quite yet, and honestly, the last fight, it didn't work in their favor at all. It's hard to kind of kite the right way when you use that ultimate, you're being zoned out by that Genji, so the best Ignition Frenzy can hope for is to either have Andrew land a headshot, have Forks land a sleep, or just play split. And Domination gonna find the pick early. No Nanoblade gonna be coming out for Catloaf this fight.
Domination can be a lot more aggressive now that you have that mobility, and does find the punish, making it very difficult for the Catloaf to get any area. But Lore ends up finding the pick onto Andrew, which is going to relieve a lot of pressure. And Lure finds another pick onto Tanakby. That's 2 people down, and now the Nano Blade is there as well to clean up. Going to find 1, going to find 2, and now Ignition Frenzy. They need to focus on recapping the point. Domination will fall. This is looking good for Catloaf, but Ignition Frenzy does have 1 more fight.
Ignition Frenzy has 1 more fight. Catloaf does not have that Nano Blade in their pocket anymore. Cry gonna have to build up to that rally really quickly here. However, it's the Nano coming up from Forks first.
Yeah, and that's the support line. Tanakby immediately deals with the supports of Catloaf while being nanoed. The bomb only able to find 1, and now Koi getting ticked down. The barrage is going to be used, and now there is no one left for Catloaf. Ignition Frenzy takes Hollywood, their second point.
Their second point here, working towards that reverse sweep again, just hanging on by a thread. Mere meters to go for Catloaf to take that fight, but I gotta say, Zwack, I really do think that Tanakby on this Pharah made a world of difference for Ignition Frenzy. The nanos coming out, we see in the play of the game there, and that wasn't the first nano, right, that we saw go over onto Tanakby. So really getting